Thank you so much for coming back and watching another one of my videos. My name is Khandy. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, welcome. If you are a regular viewer and subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. We have a very special treat for you. I know that this is a highly anticipated video. Today we have the beautiful Kristen here, and Kristen is a birth mom. One of the most asked questions, I guess, you may see in a group or you may ask to your adoption professional are the questions that birth moms may have, the thoughts that they have, what they experience, what they're going through, and really no one really knows. And so today we have Kristen, and she has agreed to speak with us and be as transparent as she possibly can be. And we are so appreciative of that. So I just want to throw it over to Kristen and have her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself, and then we will jump into the questions. So Kristen, take it away.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I've been a birth mom for almost 3 years. He's about 2.5 now. I also have other kids at home, so I'm just a mom, I guess.
Just a mom. Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I really, really, really appreciate it. So we're going to jump into the questions. All righty. So before deciding to place your baby for adoption, did you know anyone that had either placed a baby for adoption or that had been adopted?
I was actually adopted by my grandmother when I was 3. My mom passed away, and my dad gave me up, so she had actually raised me. So
Gotcha. So it wasn't something that was foreign to you at all?
No.
Okay. If you mind me asking, how old were you when you became pregnant?
When I was, oh gosh, 20, 25, 26, about 3 years ago.
So in that mid-20 range, about that mid-20 range. And when you found out that you were pregnant, what were your initial thoughts? Were your initial thoughts like, okay, I'm going to parent? Did you think maybe I want to terminate, or was adoption on the forefront?
It was actually shocking because right before I found out I was pregnant, I had a little girl and I lost her due to a trisomy disorder. And I had signed the papers to get the tubal done when she was born, and I guess the hospital forgot. So then a couple weeks later, I went to the appointment and they're like, "Oh, you're pregnant." And I'm like, "What do you mean I'm pregnant?" So yeah, and then I thought, "Oh gosh, maybe this is a sign." And then I was like, "No, this is not the right timing for me." So that's when I started looking into adoption.
Gotcha. And so when you found out you were pregnant, how far along were you, would you say?
I was only about 6 weeks, so it was really early.
So really, really early. And was the dad involved?
We were together at the beginning, but he wasn't really involved. He didn't have any other kids, so it was kind of just all new to him.
Gotcha. Okay. And would you say your family was involved at this time? Did you tell your family that you were pregnant?
Yes.
Did they play a positive role in your decision making, or did they have, I guess, did their opinions have any weight on your decision making? I guess I would ask.
Their opinions, no. It was more action based. Like, because I had other kids already, I knew kind of how they would be involved and how they wouldn't be involved. And so I was like, well, I want something different for this baby. I want him to have involved family, involved extended family. So that played the role.
Gotcha. So when you decided on the adoption plan, what was your next step? Where did you go for your research? Did you contact agencies? Did you contact consultants? Were you researching on social media? Were you looking at stuff online? Did you speak with your grandmother? Like, what were you doing?
I started with agencies, and then I started reaching out to, when I started looking at agencies, I actually had like the ads, sponsored family ads, I assume, would start popping up, and I would contact some of them. I actually finally met the family I chose in a local Facebook group. she was already a mom, and she posted asking about what would a mom look for that was considered adoption, and she wanted her book looked over. That's actually how I met the family.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. So she wasn't even really like necessarily presenting herself. She was asking people to just look at her book, and you said, you know what?
Yes.
You never know. I tell people all the time, you never know. Okay.
Yes, they had just started. They didn't even have a book yet. They just wanted to know what to put in their book.
Okay. Okay. About how far along were you at that point?
I was already about 30 weeks by the time I found her.
Wow. Okay. So you went all that time and just you knew what you were going to do, but you just really did nothing because you were. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I had talked to, I had interviewed a couple couples, and I had talked to people, and I had tried to meet people, but I just didn't really feel a connection with anybody yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, this is good. Okay. At any point from the 6-week mark to the 30-week mark, when you met that lady in the group, or when you were first introduced to her, were there any doubts in your adoption plan? Did you ever say, you know what, I can do this?
Yes. I actually went and got everything for him. He had a whole nursery. He had clothes, a car seat. I took classes. So I had everything just in case I didn't find someone that I felt that was it. Like I felt that I would knew when it was it. So he had everything at home just in case that he came home.
Gotcha. Okay, so your whole thing was, if I don't find the family that I feel a connection with, I'm not placing him.
Yes.
Smart. Okay, I love that. I honestly do love that. Okay. So your adoption was facilitated pretty much by you. Like you didn't use any type of adoption agency, consultant, matching attorney, or anything like that. You met her in the group, and then you connected with adoption professionals after that, correct?
Yes, she was with an agency, so I had to start working with her agency after that. So her, I assume it would be her caseworker or their birth mom caseworker, and then we met lawyers and things like that.
Okay. Did her agency, did their social worker, did anyone offer you pre-placement counseling?
No.
Was it ever brought up to you? Did you know that that was an option?
I'd heard about it before, but it wasn't brought up through them. It had been brought up through other agencies that I had reached out to. Mm-hmm. But her agency really didn't offer much at all. They were just kind of checked in and filled out paperwork, and that was about it.
Do you wish it's something that you would have received?
Probably. It might have made it a little easier, the transition, because I was always prepared for it, but I wasn't quite prepared for what it would feel like after.
Yeah. 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 So ultimately, they didn't have a book. So why did you pick them?
Well, she didn't have a book yet, but I met them in person. They actually ended up being, I think they were like 45 minutes to an hour away from me in distance wise. Mm-hmm. And I met them, and I took all the kids I had over there, and we just hung out. Like there was no, there was no questions, or it wasn't like an interview. And they were just like, oh, your kids can come and play, and you can come and hang out. And then they gave me one of their books, and in their book, it actually said something about stepping on Legos and maybe saying a bad word or something like that. And it just made me feel like they didn't feel like they had to be perfect. And I knew I wasn't perfect. So I was like, well, this will work out great because I'm not perfect and you're not perfect. And maybe we'll make something perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, lately, with our company here, we've been talking a lot to our clients about profiles and being authentic and just being who you are, because the right mom will connect with you. You don't have to be this picture perfect idea of what you think a mom is looking for. So with that being said, and I know you were far along in your pregnancy when you actually discovered this family, did you have specific preferences in your mind that you were looking for? And did you have specific things that you were not open to at all for your son?
At the beginning, I started out with a list, and it actually changed throughout. Because at first, I was like, I want no other kids. I want him to have all the attention.
Can I cut off you? Can I cut you off for 1 second? Why is that you would say that you don't want them to have any other kids?
At first it was, I know it's hard for me to, give equal attention to each of the children I already had. So I just worried that with him being an adopted child, maybe if their other biological kids needed attention, he would be less likely to get the attention he needed.
Okay. All right. Now the rest of the list. Okay. So no kids.
The kid thing. Yeah, the kid thing. And then they had to have a big extended family, because we don't have very much extended family support. So I wanted him to have, the grandparents, the cousins. And then they had to want an open adoption.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to know that he was all right in all aspects, not just through a picture once a year or something like that. But they actually had 2 other kids the family I chose for him. So that changed.
And so when you said you wanted an open adoption, and I know that they're about, an hour away from you, what was your definition of adoption? I mean, open adoption at that time, because, it varies for some people. Like some people, they mean video chat, photos, phone calls. And some people that means, that they're going to birthday parties. They may, go to graduations. So what was your idea of open adoption?
At first it was more of, I just wanted to see maybe once a year, maybe once every other year, and then pictures every so often just to see him. That was the intended thing. That was what I thought, because I actually didn't look local. I actually started looking as far as California when I started.
Gotcha. Okay. And what were your no-goes? Like, I will not look at a family if they are XYZ.
I didn't want a single parent, because I felt that I have nothing against single parents, but I felt that I, as a single parent, I could probably give him the same amount that another single parent could give him. So I just wanted him to have both roles, like the mom and the dad role there. And then I didn't want anyone that was really closed off, because I felt the more you could communicate with me, the more you could communicate with him as he got older. Just tell him, this is your story. This is how you became who you are.
So those were your only real hiccups. Were you adamant about the fact of him being involved in his siblings' lives?
Yes, I did ask about that. And I figured, I wanted someone who, if I was allowed visits, they would be allowed visits too. Like they would be able to come with me, because we come as a package deal, just like he and I sort of came as a package deal.
Okay. Did you have a conversation with your children about adoption and what that would look like? That there wasn't going to be a baby potentially coming home with you, maybe, because, you still had the option to change your mind.
They were really small at the time. My oldest was only 6.
Okay.
At the time, and then my youngest was only like 2.5 to 3. I didn't tell them, but I told them, like at the hospital when he was born, I told them, well, he's gonna go home with this family, and they're gonna take care of him, and you'll still get to see him. And we actually all were in and out of the hospital together. Their kids would come, and my kids would come, and everybody was just kind of there together.
Gotcha. So let's go into, did you deliver full term?
He was 39 weeks.
Okay. Good full term baby. Okay. So let's fast forward to you're going into labor. Did you and the family make a hospital plan prior to as to who would be there, who would be your support system, who would be doing skin to skin. If you didn't want them at the hospital, did you speak to a social worker? Like, did the social worker contact you? Did the agency have a representative that was going to come and be there with you? Like, what was the whole breakdown of that experience?
There was really nothing. There was no plan. When I went into labor, it was the middle of the night. So I texted mom and I was like, I think I'm going into labor, but I'm going to wait and go to the hospital later. And then I texted her that morning and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is it. And she's like, well, let me know if you want us to head that way. And I actually had dreamed that the day it happened, I would call them and they wouldn't want him. Like, they wouldn't know who I was. And so when I got to the hospital, I was like, I have to call them and let them know that they'd come. And when I called, she didn't answer the phone. So I kept telling them, I'm like, we have to call. Like, I don't know why they're not answering the phone. Her other little boy had her phone.
Oh, no.
Hid it from her. Yeah, so they didn't answer. And I was like, oh no, this is really happening. Like, they're not gonna answer.
Oh, nightmare. Oh no.
Yeah. And they actually, so when I went into labor, they actually changed it to a C-section. They wanted him to be a C-section. So they stopped labor and they were like, you don't really have time to wait on anyone. He has to come out now because you're so far into labor.
Who was there with you?
My youngest daughter and ex-husband are actually the one that took me. So they waited in the waiting room, and then I went to the OR by myself. And then when I came out, everyone was there.
So the parents were there?
Yes, they did make it.
Okay. Gosh. My blood pressure right now is like elevated. Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. Was it a sense of relief when you saw them?
Yes, that they were there, that that nightmare that I had weeks before did not come true.
Gotcha. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're going to continue with the hospital part, but can we go back to the birth plan? So at no time did I guess your representative from the agency or your attorney, at no time did anyone speak with you or a social worker from the hospital speak with you about a hospital plan?
I think the initial paperwork I filled out, they asked if they were to be there and how he would be named. I think that was the two questions on the intake paperwork, but nothing like, when we would call or who do I call when it happens. Nothing like that was ever laid out.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay, so you deliver a healthy baby boy and you go into your room to recover. What happens? Do you do skin to skin? Do they get their own room? Do they do skin to skin? What happens?
I actually don't think, if I remember correctly, I don't think he got skin to skin at all. They took me from the OR. They took him over to the nursery, and then when they took me to the recovery room, they wheeled him over, and it was just me and my stepmom that went over initially. But I don't remember there being any skin to skin. And then everybody come over a few minutes later.
Did any of the nurse, so at this point, did the doctors and the nurses know that you had an adoption plan in place and that the adoptive parents were at the hospital? Did they know that?
Yes. Before they took me from the OR back to the laboring part of the hospital, I assume. And of course they had already knew before we went back to the OR that everybody was coming. I met with my attorney in that part of the hospital to sign some papers, and then that's when I knew that the parents that they had come in as well. So, and then me and the baby went over to the recovery part of the hospital, and then that's when everyone followed a couple minutes later.
Okay. Did at any point the nurses or physicians encourage you to nurse the baby?
No.
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 Okay.
They asked, and I think, yeah, they asked if he was going to be breast or bottle fed, and I tried to nurse him. I think I tried to nurse him his first or second feeding, but when I have C-sections, it's hard for me to produce anything. So we tried to nurse him, and then he didn't get very much. And so I think mom gave him his first bottle after they come over.
Okay. Okay. Did you have a conversation with mom prior to you trying to nurse him, or did you just try to nurse him?
We had talked about it, and the goal actually in the beginning was that I would try to nurse and then try to pump as well to send some home with them. So like they bought me like lactation cookies and things like that to try to help everything work out like that, but it just didn't.
Gotcha. And sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does not. Okay. All right. And so after you delivered, were you still 100% about your decision?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. And who named the baby?
They did. Well, okay, so they named him, but she chose to use the name that I had named him before I matched with them as his middle name.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. That's nice. After discharge, the next few weeks, what was that like for you?
It was like a roller coaster. After discharge, he went home the night before I did, so it was really hard that night. I just kept saying things like, well, maybe I can't do this, maybe I'm crazy. And then I got home, and I would watch him. I would watch him through her Facebook, and she just posted so many pictures. And so I'd be like, oh, look, he's happy, and he's little, and he's spoiled rotten. And I actually think it was maybe a couple weeks after I met them for lunch and got to see him. So.
Gotcha. So you guys had agreed upon an open adoption. Do you feel like in the few weeks following discharge that they upheld what they said that they were going to do as far as communication wise with you?
Yes, we didn't really have a plan. And I backed off a lot during that time. Like I didn't try to reach out or anything because I was processing a lot. Mm-hmm. So I would just kind of watch from afar. That way they could get accumulated to their new life, and I could get accumulated to, well, this is how it is. This is my distance that I need to process things correctly. Mm-hmm. So I was ready. That's when I was like, maybe you think that we can meet up and, have lunch or something. And she was like, absolutely.
And did you fully understand the revocation period that you had?
Yes.
And at any point in that time, did you feel like you were going to revoke?
No.
Okay. Okay. So knowing what you know now, would you still choose adoption?
Yes.
Okay. Knowing what you know now, the same family?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, is everybody okay? I mean,
that's the other child.
Welcome to YouTube. Okay. So what, if anything, would you have done differently?
I'm not sure. I wish I would have looked locally, probably. Maybe I would have run into them a little sooner.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Do you have any regrets?
No.
None? Okay.
No.
Did you join any birth mom support groups?
Yes. Okay, so I looked on Facebook for birth mom support groups before he was placed, and I just found a lot of those really toxic.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have been in and out of like birth mom support groups on Facebook since he's been placed, and I still feel like a lot of them are really toxic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just because I have a different view or how that is, because a lot of them are like, they group birth moms as like birth moms that chose like me, and then birth moms that didn't really choose like via foster care or CPS. And I don't feel like that's the same thing.
It's not. Mm-mm. It's not. I mean, I know some moms that have, decided to parent because of those support groups, because of
Yes.
all the negative that they hear and they read, and they're just like, oh no, they're definitely lying to me. Once that baby's placed, they're never going to contact me. I'm never going to see a photo. This is just all lies to get a baby. And so those groups can be, I like to say, I'm not in any of them, but from what I hear, they can be very toxic. Very.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So do you have any advice for any pregnant women, young girls that may be considering making an adoption plan?
I would say, I think the biggest thing is make sure you're at peace. Like, make sure if, someone's going to say, well, you sold your baby. That's a big thing that people say when you say, oh, I placed my kid for adoption. A lot of people are like, oh, you sold your baby. If that's going to bother you down the road, then reevaluate, because people have an skewed view of adoption, and it's just not the truth. I think you really have to connect with the family that you decide on. If you have any doubts at all, people look it until baby's here. People can even after baby's here, because I've seen some they don't place until after they're baby born. So just make sure you're comfortable with who you choose.
100%. Do you have any advice for girls that don't have support of family, and family opinions are very important to them? And like what you said, one thing you said was very key to me. I already have children, and I know the role, and I know the support that I already get with them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that played a huge role in my decision on my adoption plan. What would you say to them, that their families, although they may not be supportive, their family's opinion still plays such a high role in their decision making?
You just have to think about, at the end of the day, is your family going to get up every 2 hours and feed baby? Is your family going to help you if you need a pack of diapers? Is your family going to really, they can give their opinions all day, but in the end, is your family really going to do the things that you need to help you successfully take care of your child? And if the answer is no, then you need to do what your opinion is.
Gotcha. You're absolutely right. So, any words for a first-time mom that has placed and she's having a hard time, a really hard time, and doesn't really necessarily have a support system?
It's absolutely okay to have a hard time. I used to tell people that it was like grieving. It was like grieving all over again to a child that did not pass away. So, you'll have your bad days, you'll have your good days, and as long as you're confident in the decision you made, and as long as your adopted family is holding up their end, then it's okay. It's okay to have good days and bad days, and it's okay to some days be like, that's not fair. I should have done that. I might have made a wrong choice. It's okay to question yourself, as long as you know that in the end you did what was best for you and your baby.
Any advice for hopeful adoptive parents with expectant mom etiquette?
Don't make it about baby. That's a big thing. Like, if you're gonna talk to expected moms, don't say, "Oh, well, how is our baby?" Don't use words like "our" because it's not.
It's not your baby. It's hers.
Hers. Yeah. And don't say, "Oh, well, I want to do this or I want to buy that," because we don't really care what you want to do and what you want to buy because we might not be fully decided yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think the big thing for hopeful adoptive parents is if you meet a expected mom and she expresses that she may want to parent, I think that it's important that you don't just go, don't just stop talking to her. Because, like, I bought everything for him, his nursery, his clothes, his car seat. He had everything at my house, just like you probably would at a hopeful adoptive parent's house. That didn't mean that at any time I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to use, X, Y, and Z to get A, B, and C, because that wasn't the truth. I just wanted to make sure I chose correctly for him. And I think a lot of parents, a lot of hopeful adoptive parents, when you say, "Oh, well, I bought baby an outfit," they're like, "Oh, well, we already have clothes." Just be more accepting of a lot of. I know I sent clothes and toys and books, and I sent everything I possibly could because I didn't want them to feel like I didn't want the adopted parents to feel like I couldn't take care of him. That's why I picked him. I wanted them to feel like I picked them off the basis of I thought they were best.
Mm. So if we have a family and they are talking to an expectant mom and she has a baby shower, is that just a part of her process? Maybe.
I would say possibly because I had people send gifts for him. I had, the family that I already knew would be supported. They bought like clothes or blankets and things like that, but never did that make me say, "Oh, well, they bought him a blanket. Maybe it'll be different with this cat." In my mind, I still knew that, "Oh, well, he'll just take this blanket to mom and dad's when he goes."
Mm-hmm.
I went out and got a personalized diaper bag for him with the name that I chose on it. And I sent that with him as well, even though that wasn't his name.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So any advice to hopeful parents on their profiles?
Be honest. Don't be I worked with an agency for a little bit and they sent me over 200 profile books, and that's overwhelming. And when they all look the same, they start to all feel the same. So it's like, oh, I'm never going to connect with any of these people because everybody has 2 dogs and a nursery and a big house and a large family and they travel and
You sound like me. I have the 2 dogs. I didn't have the nursery.
yeah, like everybody has the same stuff. I want to know who you are.
What makes you different?
In the middle of the night, or yeah, are you gonna be walking around singing lullabies, or are you gonna be in the nursery like, "Look, baby, it is time to go to bed."
And being like, it's time to go to bed. It's time to go to bed. Wow. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is invaluable information. Okay, so for that scariest phone call, and it's that first phone call with an expectant mom that hopeful adoptive parents have, what's the best way to handle it? Because I mean, you speak to parents all the time and they're so nervous and they're like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what we're going to speak about. I don't know if she's going to want to talk to us. And, how do they navigate that call with a mom, that first phone call?
I think you just have to remember that everything you're feeling, she's probably feeling too. She's probably like, "Oh, what do I ask them? what do they want to talk about? Do they want to hear about me, or do they just want to hear about the baby? Or so we probably feel the same feelings that they're feeling as well.
Gotcha. And for families that have already adopted, what advice would you give to a family that's adopted and how they should navigate that relationship shortly thereafter placement? As far as allowing mom to have her space, to grieve in her own way, but still communicating with her.
I would say to keep, if you promise. I know a lot of the birth mom support groups, they say, well, they promised this and this after baby, and then it didn't happen. I would say if you make a promise, to keep that promise. Think about how you would feel if, we promised you things and they were like, oh, no, never mind, we got our part, so we're done keeping these promises. And if you feel that birth mom stepped back, like I stepped back and watched from afar, there's photo sharing apps. Maybe you can connect and just say, here's this app I'm using to share such and such as photos. That way she can go and look at them maybe in the middle of the night. And she doesn't have to say, can I have a picture, or how's he or she doing? She just has that freedom to go at her own pace. And then if she wants calls, say, well, when you're up for a call, let me know. Instead of, oh, well, I can't call today or I have to call this. Like, we know that life gets crazy, and sometimes you just can't hold those calls or those visits or whatever. But you just have to be open with us like we were open with you.
Gotcha. Great advice. What does adoption mean to you?
It means having an extended family. Watching something.
Hold on. Stop speaking for 1 second. Your phone kind of went low. Start again.
It means watching something bigger than myself unfold. I found a quote right after he was born that said, if I would have loved you any less, you'd be here with me today. And that is the truth. It means watching him from afar and seeing him succeed and do things beyond what I would ever be able to offer him.
A mother's love. A mother's love. Sometimes I see posts and it makes me cringe. Honestly, it just makes me cringe. And everything you've said in this call has just like made my heart smile, because I don't know, I've had my own adoption experiences, but, and we have great relationships, but these are not questions I've ever asked them, and, one thing I'm very adamant about, and I say this all the time, is if I say something, I'm going to keep my word. You know what I mean? And I say that to people all the time in this, like, if you tell a family something, keep your word. Keep your word. Be who you are. Be who you are. And listening to you speak, it reassures me that I'm doing it the right way. And that's comforting. It's comforting. It's comforting, because sometimes you don't know, because, and again, we're dealing with human emotion, and, sometimes people need a break, and, but again, I can only control what I can do, and what I can do is what I told you that I was going to do. So I just remain consistent with it. And, but just hearing your positive experience, and just hearing even like how you said that you waited so far into your pregnancy to select a family because you wanted to pick what you felt was going to be the perfect family for him, things like that. And then it was so unconventional. Like, they didn't have their book. They had the 2 kids. Like, they didn't have that perfect you know what I mean? It was just like, but it was them. It was something about them, and I don't know. This is hard. This is hard for everybody. It's
It
just
is.
hard for everybody. It's hard. It's hard for every single person. Would you recommend moms getting counseling during this time?
Yes, I think so. Um, Especially if you've never grieved. I think it was a little easier for me because I was obviously a little disconnected, grieving the loss of the baby I had lost right before finding out I was pregnant with him. But I think if it wouldn't have been that way, I think it would have been a lot harder for me to understand the process and what was going on and why I felt the way I felt, even though I knew that this is what was best for me.
Any last words of advice?
Just always remember to communicate. It's important in every relationship, and this does not take that away. It's still important in this one.
You know what? I'm going to ask you something that wasn't even on the list, and the verbiage with your son. Like, is this something that you've spoken with his parents about, as far as like what he'll call you and things like that? Is that like a conversation that you guys have had, or you'll just navigate that at the time? Because I know he's still super young. He's my daughter's age.
Um, when we first started talking about it, I think that we did talk about like what he would call me and things like that. But I
Hmm.
think we really just go now by he's talking a little more now. He wasn't talking very much before, but on our last visit he's talking a little more. So I think we just really go by whatever, as long as she's comfortable with that. Obviously I wouldn't want to make her uncomfortable. But like if I get him gifts, I'll say, you know, well, such and such, mommy loves you, or I bring the other kids and they're a little older, so they'll say, well, my brother, and we use those words. So
Gotcha. And again, you have to do what works for your family. You know, no family is the same. Um, and I think again, these conversations are definitely necessary, especially when there's siblings involved. You know what I
yes.
mean? So, Kristen, this was lovely. I appreciate you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I know my viewers appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. This was absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. My husband just brought in food, so that's why I'm like, what is happening right now? um, but I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And if this is your first time watching one of my videos, thank you. Please go ahead and leave any questions or comments you have for myself or Kristen below. I'm sure she doesn't mind jumping in and answering any of them. And please go ahead and push that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed, and turn on your notifications. I upload a new video on a different adoption topic every 2 weeks. This was by far one of the most interesting interviews I think I've ever done, because again, this is a perspective that we just don't get very often. You know what I mean? This is most of us that are adoptive parents, we have birth moms in our lives, but we don't sit down and ask them these questions that she so eloquently answered for us. So I cannot thank you enough. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you have your children. We heard big screams. I don't know what happened. I hope everybody's okay. So I thank you, thank you for your time. Thank you. And thank you so much for watching. Again, please hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, press that like button, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.